Good evening, brothers and guests and friends. Welcome to another edition of the Alpha Phi Alpha General Committee on Public Policy Fireside Chat Series Road to the Midterms. I am Brother Dr. Leonard C. McKinnis II, and I serve as General Chairman of the committee. On behalf of General President Brother Luci Metellus and the General Committee on Public Policy, welcome to another Fireside Chat Series. I'm joined tonight by our host this evening, Brother Dr. O.K. Inya, who is not only a member of this committee, but coincidentally, we have a long history together. As Brother Inya and I came through the same chapter, he was one of the brothers who brought me into this fraternity. So it is good to see you this evening, Brother Inya. How are you tonight?
Yes, I'm doing well, and I really have enjoyed seeing you bloom and blossom as a member of our August fraternity, and I'm really excited for what is ahead for you as well.
Thank you, my brother. So, brothers, listen, first of all, thank you to all those who have joined. I see the numbers growing. Do us a favor, share this with your friends, your family. Click share so others can be aware that we are live tonight. Listen, brothers, all across this nation, the midterms are happening for the primaries. In November, there is a lot at stake. There is much at stake that concerns the communities that we serve and also the interest of men of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. As your General Committee on Public Policy, from now through the midterm, this is our fourth in the series, by the way. Every month until the midterms, we are introducing a new topic that is of keen interest to men of Alpha Phi Alpha and those in our communities to equip you with knowledge that you may need, that you can share with those who are preparing to go to the polls. For we know more is on the ballot than names. Policies are on the ballot. Ideas are on the ballot. Our future is, in fact, on the ballot. And so, as men of Alpha Phi Alpha, we have never shirked our responsibility of engaging the political sphere and being active members in civic and social society. And as a committee on public policy, we have been entrusted by our general president to produce learning mechanisms for the brotherhood and engagement for policy ideas. And so we are thrilled tonight for what's ahead of us. So I'm going to leave the stage and let my committee member, Brother Inya, take the show from here. We have an august panel tonight who is going to engage you. And please, by all means, put your questions and comments in the chat throughout the night, and we will try to get to those as they come in. And with that, Brother Dr. Inya, good luck, and I wish you and this panel an excellent time tonight.
Thank you so much. Yes, good evening. I am Brother Dr. O.K. Enya. I serve as a Deputy Surgeon General for our fraternity, as well. I'm also a two-time author. My second book is called The John Henry Health Equity Playbook, which is a 4-year health policy agenda for Black men. And I also am the founder of the John Henry Institute for Black Men's Health and Policy Innovation. And so it's really excited to be hosting this very important conversation, as both Dr. McKinnis shared. I am a member of the Mu Lambda chapter seated in Washington, D.C. Tonight's conversation is grounded in a simple but important truth. Civic health is public health. Civic health is public health. What's on a ballot is not simply candidates or political parties. What's on a ballot are the systems and conditions that shape whether communities can thrive in terms of healthcare access, economic opportunity, as well as public safety, housing, education, mental health, civic participation, and environmental conditions. Those are called the social drivers of health. And too often, Black men are discussed primarily through deficits, pathologies, disparities, or only during election year seasons. Tonight, we will be unapologetic about centering Black men. And we want to center Black men as leaders, organizers, fathers, voters, policy shapers, and community builders. This conversation is about power, participation, accountability, and collective well-being. And so before I bring up the panelists to introduce themselves, let me state that our fraternity is nonpartisan, and the views expressed on this platform are reflective of the individuals and not the fraternity writ large. Who you vote for is your choice. And so we're going to bring up the panelists to introduce themselves. I will start with Brother Anthony Mitchell, and then I'll go to Brother Khalil Thompson, and then Brother Greg Jackson.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. One, to the fraternity brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha, I greet you. Anthony Mitchell, initiative of the Gamma Nu chapter at Penn State University. Super excited to dive in on this topic, not just because it's timely, but also because uh, I'm pleased to be joined by such distinguished brothers, including you, Dr. Inya, and of course, Khalil and Greg. I'll start my remarks and we'll get into the conversation, but I'll just start by briefly introducing myself as a young man from New Orleans and transitioned through Pennsylvania State University, and of course now serving in Washington, D.C. as a lobbyist and a consultant in a number of regards. What brought me to this platform tonight, and by auspicious invitation, was my connection to the Monumental Men's Network. As the founder of that organization, which started about 2 years ago, we convene on a regular basis executive and professional Black men, previously in the Washington, D.C. metro area, but now nationally. And we invite brothers to tap in with us. But before we get into all of that, I'd love to pass it back to Dr. Enya, who will introduce our next panelist.
Yes, Brother Thompson, please go ahead.
Brothers, it's always an amazing opportunity to be with you and be in community, to be in fellowship and brotherhood here this evening. Thank you. My name is Khalil Thompson, initiative Mu Lambda chapter. Dr. Enya stood right behind me at that pivotal moment as I walked all the burning fans. I appreciate that. Also, to be in a room, a virtual room with Brother Mitchell and Brother Jackson is truly a pleasure this evening. I formed and founded Win with Black Men back in 2022. At the end of the election season, and then built it out to an organization that civically empowers and engages Black men around the country. Most don't know that it's been around that long, and early in July of 2024, we had about, I think, 15 people that hopped on a Zoom and really gave it thought and if we should consider. And then fellow brothers like Roland Martin, Michael Blake came together with a few others, and we hosted a Zoom call later on in July, and sort of launched us into the stratosphere to do more work. And so we're really excited with this year, but not only what we're doing in 26, more importantly, what we're going to do in 27, 2028, and 2029.
Yeah.
Dr. Enya, I'm going to pass it back to you so we can hear from, hopefully, the new at-large council member from Washington, D.C.
Yes, sir.
My council member. My council member. My council member.
Well, greetings, brothers. Apologize, I'm off camera. I'll be on camera in a second. I'm literally coming from a campaign event. As you know, voting is happening right here in D.C. right now. Early voting is in full swing. But I'm just excited to be here. I couldn't miss time with my brothers no matter what. Greg Jackson, Follow 4, Iota Beta, University of Virginia, Ace Club. And just really excited to be a part of this conversation. Professionally, I've served at all levels of government at this point. Served in the mayor's office for a few years, ran a nonprofit that pushed for policy in 31 states and in Congress. And then most recently, I was the deputy director for the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention under President Joe Biden, and also his special assistant. And so excited to bring all those angles and experiences to this conversation. And as you shared before, now I'm actually running for DC Council at large. And so in full swing of fighting for our city and making sure we can create a safer, more affordable DC for everyone. So looking forward to the conversation, and I will be on camera shortly. Thank you, brother.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, Khalil, I'm going to start with you. Given where you sit, given your background experience, Black men are tired of being talked at. Black men are tired of being talked down to. When you were founding Women Black Men and just kind of thinking about how do we shift the narrative, how do we ensure that the voices of Black men are taken seriously, and we are not just talked down to or talked at, but actually engaged in meaningful ways. With Women with Black Men, how have you helped to catalyze a national conversation around Black men's civic engagement and political power?
Sure. And thank you for the question, Brother Enya. I know that when we founded Win with Black Men in 2022, as most things in our community, it came after the impetus and talking to an amazing Black woman, Joteka Edie. And so in this moment, as we're having this conversation, I want to make sure that we talk about the work that we want to do, not only for advocacy and uplifting our fraternity, but that we rooted in understanding the respect and the protection that we also need to share with our partners and with Black women who are long since been leading this work. And been doing it without fanfare, without recognition. And then as we transition from that recognition of them and doing it in partnership and protection with them, we make sure that we start thinking about what it means to be civically engaged in our communities. I know many of you in this fraternity, as I've gotten to talk to you, some of you, we show up to a lot of our social events. I know many of us are always out there at the voter registration drives. We're manning a poll on election day or early voting, but what can we do more? I think it has to go beyond that photo that we take. For those of you that happen to be in the MAC, if you go to Annapolis and we get to see our governor and maybe future Wes Moore and our brother, but it has to go beyond that photo opportunity. It has to go beyond doing something during CBC. And please, this is no comment on what we do and how we show up to say that it's wrong. I'm just saying, if we're the first, we've got to lead in a different way. And so as I thought about forming Women with Black Men, I really wanted to create a space where brothers from all walks of life, blue collar, white collar, or no collar, could come together and really have a conversation about what it means to be civically engaged in our communities, what it means to show up and vote, to participate, to be legislatively active. And just as a little bit of an aside, for those that know me, I have an amazing 9-year-old CEO who runs my life, which I love being a girl dad. But her school's ending next week. Over the last week and a half, as DC is going through their budget cycle, the parent chat has been engaged to make sure we're increasing per pupil spending in public charter schools. I would love to see that same type of energy that we can funnel through our fraternity, whether it's per pupil spending, school modernizations, road pavings, whatever it may be, federal legislation that helps with the 500,000 Black men who've been unemployed under this current administration. Starting small, but then going big later, I think is where the work needs to begin. I think I answered your question, but I probably drifted off there a little bit.
No, that was perfect, because where I'm going next is to have you take a deeper dive into your infrastructure as it relates to Women with Black Men. So how do we build long-term civic infrastructure that keeps Black men engaged and connected to policy outcomes between elections?
Sure. So it's not just about, I mean, we can talk about what the meaning is of this, whether I think of, and I'm a movie buff walking IMDb, I think about Mashari Ali in Free State of Jones, where he is walking as a freed slave from plantation to plantation, registering people to vote, but then was killed and hung later in the movie. I can think about the phalanx and the legion of Black men and women who have died, who are nameless, who we just do not know, who did so much so that we could have this opportunity to be in the Zoom. If that doesn't move you, let's talk about economics. If we're not choosing what goes on the menu, we are on the menu being decided for. I know that's a phrase that probably many of you have heard, but it is so true this election cycle. What I saw, and I think many of you saw from the DNC autopsy report was, and I make no bones about those that make their money. I appreciate them greatly. But one company made, on the soft side, not the hard side of the election cycle, but a Democratic soft side, made $861 million. It was not a Black-owned firm. If they can make up to $1 billion off of a Black woman who's running for president, who is then coming out there to be, I think economics has to be the driving factor. So if you don't want to do it for history and for those that sacrificed, do it because right now, far too many of us are fighting. Gas, we all know, is far too high. I won't curse, far too high. The price of eggs and milks is through the roof. And so if you want to figure out how your vote is going to be impactful, I'm not saying you choose the lesser of two evils. That's not it at all. But if you choose not to vote, you're making a choice. Please believe. And if you're seeking perfection, please tell me and point to the only politician that's been perfect. And I'll wait, because if there's somebody out there that did everything for you, and that's the only politician that always showed up and did it, great. Let me know where they are, and I want to go move there and live there. But I've been very happy with the votes that I've cast, and I've been unhappy with the results. But at the end of the day, I also have to believe in the great promise that is America. And I know we're coming up on that 250 years. So my hope is that, thirdly, as we're closing this question out, me not being long-winded, is that you're also making a voting plan and you're making it fun for your family. I talked about that 9-year-old CEO daughter. She already wants to go early vote. She doesn't want to wait till election day. Since she was in the womb of her mother, we went, and there's a picture of us putting an I voted sticker on her belly. We have made it a family tradition that we go and vote in primaries and general elections together. So not only, if you don't want to do it for history, if you don't want to do it for economics, do it for your family. So take your children, take your mom, your dad, go together and make it a family event. Most places have early voting that you can show up, so you don't have to wait for election day. If you want to fill your ballot out at home, and I'm sure many of those that live in DC or New York, you have ranked choice voting. If you have questions, I'm sure we can find the right resources for you. But please make it a family effort and make a plan and go vote.
Love it, love it. I'm going to take the point that you made, Khalil, about economics, and I'm going to toss it over to Anthony, given his background and experience, and ask about your work. And because your area, amongst others, it really looks to emphasize leadership, development, partnerships, civic engagement, and economics. So, kind of, given where you sit, talk us through how you envision the voices of Black men can be heard loud and clear in the context of economics, and how we need to begin to think about the narrative and the messaging that needs to be crafted and created to get the vote out in much more stronger ways this cycle.
Absolutely. I can't. It's hard sometimes coming behind Khalil, man, because he's already given you so much, and I got to give you some vegetables. So, um, as Khalil discussed, political engagement is something that's not a once every 4 years sort of activation. It's a consistent basis, and it's a constant engagement. And I think, there's a term that's been floating around that I think you may have coined, Dr. Inu, about quiet power, right? And moving capital as a form of quiet power. But beyond that, how are we as Black men, and for those of us who are in corporate America, those of us who own small businesses, and we play in the business space more than we do in the public sector, more in the private sector. How do we find those resources and those levers of power to pull in a way that actually effectuates change?
Yeah.
Right. As Khalil can probably tell you, just throwing money at a problem does not fix it. Right. There are some grass tops, grassroots, sometimes you got to cut the grass and then, get some mulch and start all over. Right. And how do we find those ways to do it? And capital is a way to do that. But beyond that, too many communities only hear from institutions during election years. Part of that, I believe, is on us, right? Democracy is not a observatory sport; it's a participatory sport, and so you have to be involved. And the only time that we mobilize it can't be when we're doing strolls to the polls or some of those social activities that we talked about earlier. It has to be a physical, right? Going in person and being and actively engaging like Brother Greg is doing, but also it has to be a financial commitment, a fiduciary commitment. Whether or not folks want to believe it or acknowledge it or not, dollars have to make sense, right? And in terms of how we allocate, even as we think about going back to Khalil's example earlier about DC's budget and how we allocate funds and all those, that's a statement of values, right? A budget is a document and a statement of values. And so if we're being intentional about and serious about our long-term health as a community, you have to talk about the economics. You have to, we can't operate in silos, and we're only going to talk about education. We're only going to talk about taxes, or we're only going to talk about this particular issue. They're all intertwined and they're all interconnected in a way where we have to have people in position across the economics, across the education, people in position that can leverage their experiences and their influence to do the right thing on behalf of our community. That is the essence and the fabric and the soul of Monumental Men's Network. We're a
Right.
collection of brothers across, corporate America, and because we started off in the DMV area, we have a lot of brothers that are also, lobbyists, political consultants, that's the like. But really, we're focusing on camaraderie, career advancement, and the community impact across our partnerships and our activations. But really, what we're getting to the heart of is how do we get brothers who have affluence, influence, resources to be very intentional about not just throwing money at a problem, which money is important, but using that to actually effectuate change in a real meaningful and impactful way. And one other thing, and I know you have a bunch of other questions, so I don't want to be too long-winded
Go
here.
ahead.
But one other thing I'll say, subsection C, if you will, there are so many opportunities that we as a community overlook because we're focused on the wrong things.
Mm.
Going back to Khalil's point about table versus being on the menu, right? That is inherently important as we talk about the economics of how we do things, right? Even as folks are running for political campaigns, that costs money to run. Ads, that costs money to run. Starting up social programs that we want to help, that costs money,
Mhm.
right? How can we find a way to, as we've seen and learned with recent years in elections that have consequences, how can we find a way to be intentional about making those changes to our system? Not only just equity. I can say, I hope I can say that on here without getting canceled, but words like equity, how can we truly effectuate that in our communities where it's a long-term process that's sustainable over time and values growth? We can't, only be looking at short-term solutions as lashback problems, right?
Mhm.
We as a community across our ecosystem have to come together and figure out ways to be impactful across multiple streams, right? And I think what you're doing here, Dr. Inya, as well as with this series of bringing brothers across different backgrounds, politics, finances, all these other things to come together and talk about how we can effectuate change is one of those ways that we start to do that.
Absolutely. I'm going to come to you next, Greg. But Anthony,
Mhm.
you touched on something that I always am intentional about articulating, right? Because
Mhm.
um, it is important to, yes, secure the small wins and
Mhm.
catch the lowest hanging fruit. At the same time, what is the long game strategy, right? What is our long game? What does that look
Yeah.
like?
Yeah.
Um, and and so a part of it is the intentionality behind how do we build out the infrastructure
Mhm.
and educate our communities in ways that ensure that there is robust civic engagement throughout the course of their lives. Like let's figure out ways in which we can
Yeah.
go beyond just the voting narrative and
Mhm.
shift into civic engagement and what that looks like. I have a long so for me, I'm a former staffer on the Hill. On the Hill, I work
Likewise. Yeah.
both in the House and the Senate, right? And so I understand the policy making process, and there are actually at least 15 to 20 different civic engagement strategies or tactics that can be employed
Mhm.
to help our communities see themselves in the process, right?
Mm.
And so, Greg, you are literally running for office as we speak. I would love to hear how you're doing. What are you seeing and hearing on the ground? Talk us through some of the budgetary, kind of conversations that you're having. Give us some context around how you envision, especially as Black men, how do you envision us building civic power given where you sit?
Yeah. Well, man, it is a challenging and chaotic world right now.
I think politically what I'm seeing, one, I hate to say it, but there are so many special interest groups hard at work that are pushing different topics and different ideas. And I think they are really taking advantage of some of the challenging and just discouraged sentiment of voters throughout this district. And I imagine this is happening nationwide, but folks are really frustrated. They're really disappointed in, what has happened with Trump being in office, all of the overreach and the downright illegal things that he's doing. And I think they've also been discouraged by a Democratic Party that couldn't quite find a way to fight back, or at least fight back in a way that folks are appreciating it. And so it has been tough. I mean, it's tough out here because folks don't see the impact, don't see the purpose. But when you connect the dots for them, they light up. And that's exactly what we've been trying to do as a campaign, is just to connect the dots. Look, the reason you don't have quality schools is because this budget was passed and here's where it stands. The reason why we have 187 homicides is because we're only investing, 4% of what we're investing in prevention is of what we're investing in policing. Like the reason that we have this housing crisis is because only 41% of our residents actually own their homes, and we haven't invested enough to help people buy homes. And once you start connecting these dots between the policies and problems that they're facing and the policy ideas, issues, and solutions, and then the next step is, and these are the people that can do it, folks really get excited. And especially at the local level, I mean, in DC, this is the first time since the 60s we've elected a council member, a mayor, and a member of Congress all at once. And so for the stakes to be this high, and it to be almost a lifetime ago where people had a chance to have this much of an impact is really challenging environment to be in. But I'm still really encouraged. What we've seen is we've had a historic number of volunteers come out. We have over 650 volunteers, which is a lot for a council race. We've raised, I think at this point, the second most in our race, nearly half a $1,000,000 for a council race. And we're engaging at this point. We've touched around 70,000 voters directly, which we're excited about. And our social media content has gotten to 1 million views and impressions. And so we're hitting a lot of people in a short amount of time, which is really, really exciting. And we're connecting those dots as fast as humanly possible. But it is tough to see how discouraged some folks are. I think one other big thing, and this is what makes us really important, brothers, is we also have not seen candidates that look like us for a while. And I think we all remember the Obama years, but that's a long time ago. I mean, and some of the folks who are voting now, that was their first president when they were a baby, right? And so having strong Black men at the helm to be pushing for change, to fight for change, to stand up and run is becoming more and more rare across the country. And so it's more important that we have faces like ours that are fighting for our issues, that represent our communities, that represent the leadership in our Black communities, that we have as many of us run as possible, because I think ultimately that's how we get the change we want to see. It's not as simple as just begging other folks to think about us. No, we need to be the ones that are running, not just the ones waiting to be campaigned to. And so it's been exciting to be that and to see, especially young Black men and boys, excited to see themselves in me, right? And excited to see someone like them running for office. And so I definitely want to highlight that we need more of us, because it is that in itself is motivating folks to get back engaged.
Absolutely. Khalil, I want to come to you. I think, I think this is very a very good pivot in terms of, what you heard from Greg. What are your thoughts on what Greg has shared, and how do you envision us carrying the water kind of going forward based upon what he shared so far?
Well, Greg and I are dear friends, even before the brotherhood. So we go back to a few weddings and a few life moments, and I love him dearly. I will never forget when I had a tragedy, he came to me and just said, as I was in fatherhood, he was very proud of me to make that journey. So I love him dearly. So I say that because my next statement is just slightly disagreeing with what he said. I want to point out that we got brothers. Not alpha men who are running, but there are Black men who are running. Just last night, Tuesday, in South Carolina, Dr. Jermaine Johnson, Sr., just won the Democratic primary to run as governor of the state of South Carolina. And you had 4 Black men in there: Governor, Secretary of State, State Treasurer, and obviously the congressman and Jim Clyburn. So
Clyburn.
they're alone. We've also got in South Dakota, Julian Bodine is on the ballot right now as a black man running for U.S. Senate in South Dakota. We've got a brother running in Idaho. So they're all over the place that are running. To Greg's point and to Anthony and Dr. Enya's point, we just don't know. So we have to do a little bit more in research because there are really dynamic. Michael Tubbs was just on the ballot running, former Mayor Stockton running for Lieutenant Governor of California. There are two brothers who are in a runoff right now in Alabama. And the list can go on, and we're tracking it over here at Women Black Men. So that's it. That's first. There are a ton of dynamic black men who have been in community, who've been working community, who didn't just show up because it was an election year and have been working to run their offices. And we need to support them because not only because they are black men, because they're going to do our community right. Second, about DC. Now, as a native Washingtonian, I know there have been some amazing black men who've run. Now, maybe we didn't always see ourselves in them and say an Adrian Fenty or I forget the gentleman from Ward 7. I'm blanking on his name. Vincent Gray. But I remember Walter Fontroy and others who really carved through the granite so that this city could be what it is. Tony Williams, former Mayor Tony Williams, who made sure the economic development that we see today from the wharf, from the waterfront and Navy Yard to be what it is. And so I know that there's history to this city. I remember the 80s and the 90s where after 5 o'clock, you ain't see nobody in Chinatown. Like there was nobody in this city sticking around to have happy hour. So to see that is, I think, truly a good thing. But I agree with Greg that we have to hold those elected officials accountability. This is a job interview. And I know Greg is going to rise to the occasion because no man from Alpha would never rise to the occasion. And so when he's going to be a council member, I already know what his constituent service is going to be like. I already know what his policies are going to be like because he's done an amazing job articulating that and sharing that with the community. But for others who are running, we have to hold them accountable. And if they're not doing it, you can vote them out. You can fire them. And you have to show up at the voting booth in order to do that.
Absolutely. There is, and I'm going to respond to the question in the chat because I think, Khalil, you might have the most visibility to the question in terms of, is there a list of brothers running across the nation? So yeah, can you?
Well, funny enough, if you go to womenblackmen.org and click on that resource newsletter, you can follow a newsletter that comes out every Tuesday. We actually just did a round of endorsements in Nevada. Aaron Ford, black man running for governor of Nevada, that we're going to be rolling out just tomorrow. So getting ahead. There's some endorsements that we're going to be rolling out nationally. We've been only able to do statewide from governor, lieutenant governor, and a few other statewide offices, and federal from U.S. House to U.S. Senate. We haven't been able to get down on all other. However, in D.C. and in Maryland, we are going to definitely dive a little bit deeper so that we can go to some of those races. But we're building it out. There's like 32 in the state of Maryland from the state Senate and the state House. So we're just trying to get through those throughout the night. But we're building that. Look to 2027 and 2028 to have a more robust list of black men around the country that you can turn to.
Got it. Yes. I was just going to ask you about any potential partnerships. And so it sounds like those are already at play in terms of what this looks like for next year and then 2028, 2030, 2032. Right. Yeah.
No, if we're not planning our quick bit of history, what you're seeing right now from those that occupy 1600 Black Lives Matter Way was planned back in 2006, if not in 2004. The election of Obama in 2008 was a larger catalyst to start focusing on state houses and judicial races. Why this is important? So when you see Louisiana versus Calais change at the Supreme Court, now you see state legislatures who've been stacked for the last 10 years, super majorities. You then have judges on state Supreme Courts, like in Alabama, who got a Milligan decision. I know we're talking about court cases that they approved. And then literally 2 years later, they say, oh, nope, it's no longer viable. We're going to go back to the old maps and kick out Shamari figures. So these are important races, if not more important than focusing on the federal races. You're going to run into the judge at the grocery store. You're going to see your sheriff at the bar. You're going to run into somebody on the treadmill in your county council or your city council. You're going to see Greg at Run Club. So the more that you vote for those races, it's going to impact your day-to-day life more so than a congressman or a senator.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to in real time propose something that I've been thinking about recently, and it aligns
Out off
with
the presses.
We all know what he's doing now, everybody.
Yeah, he's going rogue. The people that are backstage scrambling. Yeah.
it aligns with what we are all discussing, and I would wonder if this is not already in place. Then I would propose that we consider putting something that I'm going to name in place, and to think it through. Um, and it is, the idea is meeting Black men where we are, right? Whether it's in the church space, at the barbershop, at the sporting events, wherever we are, that's the idea. So is there a national barbershop network, right? That builds upon infrastructure that is already in place, or how do we create something of that nature whereby we can literally serve as the connective tissue for all of the barbershops across the nation? Is there a mechanism in place, right? What would that look like? I want to kind of throw it out there to assess how we might land. Obviously, it'll that type of effort will take some time, but given what we know about data and where Black men are more likely to feel seen and safe and heard, it is the barbershop. That is one key space. So the question again is, what are your thoughts on what that can look like? What pushback, what challenges, what are the possibilities there? Open floor.
I got him. I talked so much. I want to make sure others can go.
Yeah. I think an idea like that works. I want to challenge this a little bit though, because look, I ain't been in the barbershop in years, and Doctor, I don't know if you have either. but
a couple weeks, so
yeah. So I think that's definitely one infrastructure, one place to look. But I also think that I would actually push for more of like thinking about our small businesses and seeing if we can think about like neighborhood bars and neighborhood restaurants. That's where I think you'll find all of us, and you're guaranteed to be all voters because it's 21 and up most of these places. But I think about like in DC, Miss Toya's, I could sit at the bar and meet 40 people right there. I could go to stands, I could meet 100 voters right there in like within an hour, 2 hours. Like I think we got to think about meeting us where we're at and recognizing that we are in different networks now. It's not just the churches and the barbershops, it's the social networks. And as Khalil said earlier, it's like the run clubs, the golf clubs. I mean, there's 2 golf clubs in DC. I mean, you go to the golf event, it's 400 people there. You know what I mean? But it's the social kind of networks is where a lot of us are, a lot of highly educated, many of them have resources, but are still not politically engaged. And that's a real problem because folks are not voting at home. They're not registered here, and they could be someone making $200,000 a year and are still not invested in their own local political world. So anyway, that's what I'll push for, some type of social group, social network that helps us get to folks where we already hang out, not necessarily where we worship or, get trimmed up.
Yeah, I'd love to jump in there, Dr. Enya. I love the concept of what you're talking about, right? But I'm going to jump on in Greg's boat and push us to go a little bit further. I think you get into one vein in particular, which is we do need an element in a space where men are psychologically safe to talk about things that are affecting them, right? Everywhere we go, and brothers know this, when we leave the house, we got to put that armor on, right? And so the barbershop is one of those sacred spaces where, I didn't fell asleep in the chair. It was that comfortable. You know what I mean? Or because we're that tired because we're running around doing everything else before we get but having that space and replicating that feeling, right? Because it's a feeling. I feel secure enough to talk about, things I ain't even talked to my boys about. I didn't talk to my wife about, things that, it feels safe. If we can replicate that across not just that, but community, across business, across politics, right, and policy. Because one thing that we have to understand and keep at the concept or top of our minds is the black man is not monolithic, right? We got brothers that are across the political spectrum, the economic spectrum, across multiple different things. And so, uh, first, we need to figure out and reinforce that leadership can look different ways, right? But it needs to be in coordination. One of the things that I think brothers lose out on is the opportunity to truly collaborate with folks who are pushing in the same direction. Because we're taught, even as young men and toddlers, is that you got to figure it out for yourself, right? Or you're weak if you ask for help. Or if we're real, I'm less of a man because I need another man's help, right? And so if we have to get brothers out of that way of thinking to a collaborative mindset. The easiest person to pick off is the person that's by themselves, right? If we just go to the wilderness, the easiest person to pick off is the person that's by himself. And in fact, there are systems that are designed for us to be intentionally, fighting one another versus collaborating and figure out ways to, push this agenda together. One thing that I think, as a lesson I've learned while working across government, I was on Capitol Hill as well, Dr. Inya. I worked for the mayor's office as well here in DC and in Pittsburgh before coming to corporate America. One lesson I've learned working across that is that, no single institution, even if the barbershop is good, but no single institution can solve the challenges that we face as Black men, one, and two, as a community. And so that's why we need brothers like Greg in place. We need brothers like Khalil in place, brothers like myself and you in place so that we can have this exchange, right? Where I've built up my barbershop over here, you got your barbershop. How can we, mix this and make it together? And so that concept that I think, just bringing it full circle here, the concept that you introduced, I think is one that we need to think about how to replicate and scale, right? Because that's when we really start making system-wide impact.
Love it. Khalil.
So, I think my fellow brothers have said it truly best. On the barbershop front, and I think I'll switch to economics because I definitely agree with Brother Jackson and Brother Mitchell on this. There are ways that we can connect. However, many of us are making a barbershop appointment now and we're setting a time. So somewhat are gone are the days that you're sitting for a few hours in a shop and listening to conversation. It happens, but it's far and few between. There are some connectivity points, Dr. Enya, that we can definitely build around this, whether it's not just here, because what we experience in DC, what we experience in New York may not be the same in Birmingham, Alabama, or Montgomery, Alabama,
Right.
or Savannah, or Albany, Georgia, LA, or Compton, or Oakland, or even Austin or Houston. And so as we talked about not being a monolith, I think we've really got to think through multiple different ways. And I don't look down on the barbershop tactic, but multiple different ways that we can engage. Centering economics as the basis for how we do this, I think truly is the pathway. If you look at any focus groups, if you look at any polling, it's not the social issues. It's not the issues about who you love. It's not the issues about abortion that are paramount. It is the issue of economics. And do I have enough money that I'm making that I can take care of myself, take care of my family, take care of my partner, and take care of my children? If I can solve those four things, then some of the other things I can tackle in my life. And I think if we start to coalesce around that, so if it's we just did at Mu Lambda a man cave at Ballou High School here in DC, the conversation that got the most energy, it was my room, so I'm gonna say it, was when we were talking to them about creating a budget for $3,000 a month and how would you spend that with either yourself or your family. And hearing them go back and forth and some of the creative ideas that they came up with. But the first thing out of majority of these young boys' mouths in Ballou was, I want to find a mechanism that I can earn, whether that was through crypto or gambling or Kalshi or something. They were looking at a pathway for economic freedom so that they can do other things in life. I think coalescing around that gives us something that we all can agree upon, no matter what party you're in, and then build on the community piece.
Wow. And so that's why I asked that question, and I want to see how it landed, because I love the brilliance of the brothers, because this is how we are able to come up with these fantastic ideas that can be operationalized and really have an impact that we really want to have. We are coming on the latter end of our conversation, and I want to do a few things. One is to shout out the fact that June is Men's Health Month, and it's also Men's Mental Health Month. And I know that there's been a lot of programming around that, and that will require an entire webinar in and of itself. But I did want to shout it out, given the fact that as I was sitting in on the Women of Black Men's call this past Sunday, where brothers who were running for office were expressing the challenges of being a Black man running for office. Like it is strenuous, stress, strain, etc. And so as a component of the economic arm of what we would look to develop, we want to incorporate the health piece as part of what that can look like. I am real big on history, and I am arguing that the first Reconstruction took place over the course of 12 years, from 1865 to 1877. The second took place during the Civil Rights Movement. Mm-hmm. The third, according to Dr. Peniel Joseph, took place during the Obama era. So I'm arguing that we are shifting into the fourth Reconstruction era. And so in that context, again, our fraternity is nonpartisan, mm-hmm. but I also want to make sure that we are creating a framework for what is ahead. Given what has transpired over the past few years, it's going to take months and years to rebuild, to mm-hmm. reconstruct, right? And given the fact that we want to also, I would argue, play the long game and work across administrations, I want to ask 5 questions that I gleaned from our fraternity brother Wes Moore, as a way to paint a picture for the future, and or what will the next few years entail. And as I'm asking these questions, I would like for each of you to think about and just give like a brief answer if you can, what that will look like. What do we need to do, right? So the first question is to think about, and we talked about this, what is broken and irreparable? So what is broken about our system and can't be repaired? The second question is, what is broken and can be fixed? Right? So what is broken and can be fixed? The third question is, what is broken and must be fixed? What is broken and must be fixed? The fourth question is, what survives and needs to be broken? What survives and needs to be broken? And the fifth question is, what survives and must be sustained and reimagined? Right? So I want to open the floor for you all to respond to those questions. I know it was not prepared, but would love your thoughts on, as we paint this picture about what is ahead. As we look at midterms in 2028 and 2030 and 2032, how should we be thinking about, as Black men, given where we all sit, how should we be leading the way across this, what I'm framing as the John Henry Reconstruction framework that I might trademark.
So make sure I have the question. What is repaired but is broken? What is repaired but can be fixed? What is repaired must be fixed? What is sustained or what survives but must be broken? And what must be sustained and reimagined? Are those the five?
Okay. Yeah, so the first one is what is broken and can't be repaired.
Okay. I mean, I 1 and 3, it's for how we engage with our sisters. I mean, what is broken and needs to be repaired, and then what is must be repaired, I think, are both of those of how we engage with sisters in our community and we protect them, while not discounting our own humanity, manliness, and caring for our own selves and our mental health. We can protect them, be vulnerable, and be the same, but we also need them to meet us where we are and accept that vulnerability, and not use it as a cudgel in conversation and relation. What must be, I think, how we look at Black political power must be sustained and reimagined.
Mm-hmm.
How we look at our own Black political power must be done through a lens without relying, dare say it, on 2 political parties. Yes, there may be one that starts with an R that we don't necessarily, many of us don't believe speaks to our better interest. But I found that after Louisiana versus Calais, there were a lot of those that have a D behind their name who say they are our friends, who say they stand with us, who have been very quiet. And I shout out Vince Evans, the executive director of the Congressional Black Caucus, who did a post check on Senator Bernie Sanders to see if he was alive, because we hadn't heard from him in a couple of weeks about Louisiana versus Calais. So I think our community realizing, if one party is fighting so hard to take away our right to vote, and another party shows up in our churches during around Halloween and in the summer, but we can't see them at Christmas and or Easter, I think we've got to reimagine how we show up for either of them and really let them know what our power is. And I'll let a couple other brothers, Greg or Anthony, try to respond to the others. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so in your final remarks, because we are coming up on time, if you can answer the questions as you are giving your final remarks, that'd be great.
I can jump in. I think this is a really good conversation. Again, thank you for having me. I think the stakes for our communities could not be higher. Right now, we are dealing with an affordability crisis. Most major cities are still suffering from violent crime, which is directly impacting us. And the answer from the Trump administration has been mass incarceration tactics and troops marching down the street. And I think the stakes for us as Black men and as a community are at an all-time high. And I think that's the one thing that I feel like is broken, but has to be fixed, is our community, our sense of community across racial boundaries. But we have to see that we're one country. If one party fails and they're in charge, we all lose. And we have to figure out how to get back to working together, to look past the divisions, whether it's race, whether it's immigration status, whether it's employment. Like, we have to look past these imaginary lines that have broken and separated us and have really divided us in a way where we are now potentially being run by a tyrant, right? They split us up that much that type of person can sit in the White House and literally physically destroy it and do whatever he wants. And so I think we really have to focus on rebuilding community, getting neighbors to know neighbors, families to know families, men to know women, men to know men, brother to brother. You live across the street, I see you at the party, we family, right? And so we have to build that and start locking step and pushing together to rebuild our country, starting with the White House down, in my opinion. So I'm so thankful, and hopefully I'm gonna be a big part of that as your next council member at large. But again, thank you so much for having me, and I'll pass it over to Brother Mitchell.
Where can we donate?
Yeah.
Oh yes, you can donate. Today's the last big day to donate to my campaign.
Do it now. Take out your phone right now.
Yeah, we need you. Election day is on Tuesday. Oh man, I'm sweating bullets, y'all. But I know I got the shield to lean on. So I need y'all all to help me out. www.jacksonfordc.com. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Anthony, go ahead.
Man, how do I follow these incredible brothers? My mom taught me that, when there's nothing else left to say, you say thank you. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to share. I'll leave you with this closing thought. For generations, Black communities have survived extraordinary challenges because people chose not to retreat, right? They chose to lean in rather than to run away. And some organized in neighborhoods and churches, and showed up and advocated, and along inside all these other things. But what we learned is now it's our turn to do that. What are we doing? And what question are we asking ourselves? Which is, how are we being good ancestors for those that are going to come after us, right? So it's not just voting, it's staying engaged. Do vote, do contribute, stay engaged, right? What we need is sustainability across the long term that will allow us to be able to be truly, truly impactful. One thing that I think, and these brothers already articulated the things that need to be broken, but one thing I think we need to change and be intentional about preserving as we move forward is understanding that our issues are not siloed. And we need to come together as a collective in order to, one, share resources and opportunities, as well as create communities. One of the things that I think, and we were talking previously about history, when segregation happened, we had Black Wall Street, but when integration happened, we started to lose that Black political power because we started to give to other communities. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. What I am saying is there's a certain irreplicable, irrevocable, irrefutable power that happens when we come together, but it's only maintained if we keep it in perpetuity and in consistency. So don't just ask how you're going to lead, decide when and where, right? This is not a game of chance. This is a game of contact sport. You have to get in the game, right? And that's the only way that our people survive and our community strives, but it's also how we've, as a people gotten along in this country, right? So we can't assume that the other side is going to keep our best intentions in mind, right? As they have their own economic and agendas on their side. One of the things that we need to make sure that we're continuing to do is keeping our priorities, our economic values, our political power at the forefront, and not giving our power away so readily. So I think that that's something that needs to be preserved and protected and maintained because of the people that marched, that died, that bled, so that we can even have those abilities, right? It's sacred, and it's something that needs to be treated as such.
Thank you so much. And as our brother Dr. McKinnis comes back up, let me just say that we have been built in times like these, for times like these. And so
That's right.
I want to thank you all for being generous with your time. Thank you for the conversation. Greater is ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Brother India, Dr. India, thank you so much to your esteemed panel. What a conversation. And we had a good audience tonight. And on behalf of the General Committee on Public Policy, I want to extend a very warm thank you to Brother Jackson, to Brother Mitchell, to Brother Thompson, and of course to our host this evening, Brother Dr. India. There is much work to be done. And with brothers like yourselves leading the charge, we know that Men of Alpha will get it done. So to our listening audience, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time by the fireside. Please enjoy the remainder of your evenings.